Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions, and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined on the co-hosts Tate in the Hour and George Aldridge, and today we'll be reviewing another one of our Oscar picks, Bridge of Spies, the 2015 movie directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Matt Charman and the Coen brothers. Oh my god, is this actually a Coen brothers movie I sort of kind of like in some way?
They got our guy, our spy pilot. They got their spy. We want you to negotiate the swap.
I'm an insurance lawyer.
Are you good at what you do?
This will be a first for the both of us.
You should be careful.
Do you know how people will look at us? The family of a man trying to free a traitor?
Every person matters.
Why aren't we hanging him? He's a spy!
We need to know what the Russian is telling you.
We're not having this conversation.
Don't go Boy Scout on me. We don't have a rule book here.
We call it the Constitution, and that's what makes us Americans.
So, as always, our reviews will be spoiler-free at the beginning, then we'll get into spoilers later, but we'll let you know when we get into that. So, our thoughts before going into this one. I remember sort of seeing the trailers around the same time I was seeing trailers for Carol, and I don't know, with Steven Spielberg, for me at least recently, is very hit and miss. I still haven't seen Lincoln. I know that was the big Oscar pick from a couple of years back, but I saw Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is always great. George, I know you say he's always just sort of the guy who does everything right, always saves the day.
Mary Sue.
He is a bit of a Mary Sue, in all honesty.
In everything.
But I thought it looked like a decent movie, but it did look like one to me that was very sort of Oscar baity, and I don't know much about Cold War history, other than it was just the Russians against the Americans. That's pretty much it. So I sort of avoided it at the start, and I only really got to see this one. My cinema was sort of screening all of the Oscar movies in a short little run up to Oscar season, so that's when I caught this one. What were your guys' thoughts before going in, or did you think this was going to be a great film from the off?
I remember seeing that first trailer and it looked kind of intense, and I don't mind films like this, bit of a Cold War thriller. I did Cold War in history and I enjoyed it, so it's something I kind of like knew a bit about. And I was excited. I mean, I like the Coen brothers, and I saw they're writing the script, which is very different. It's going to be very different to the average Coen brothers film, and it was. So I was kind of looking forward to it, and I liked Steven Spielberg as well. So it was just like the kind of film I know I'd like. But obviously, it's all over Oscars.
Tate?
Well, I've never really been too big of a fan of Spielberg. Not like I wouldn't go and see every single film that he brings out, but this film, I thought, okay, it's probably going to be a big pick for the Oscars. I mean, I saw the trailer and thought, okay, that's really quite good. I'm interested in this film. And it ended up being just quite a good drama.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So, for anyone who doesn't really know what Bridge of Spies is about, Tate, do you want to just read the plot synopsis off the good old IMDb?
During the Cold War, an American lawyer is recruited to defend an arrested Soviet spy in court, and then help the CIA facilitate an exchange of the spy for a Soviet-captured American U-2 plane pilot, Francis Gary Powers.
Yeah, and we should also...
That was really hard to say, actually.
We should also probably mention which awards this film's up for. So it's been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Mark Rylance, and Best Original Screenplay.
Also, music, sound mixing, and production.
Yeah, that's probably what the other ones are for. For some reason, they don't see fit to include those on the main page from Wikipedia. But let's get into performances again. With this one, there's probably a bit more to talk about in this one than there was for Room, but you do need to touch on the performances in this one. So let's talk about Tom Hanks playing a character called James B. Donovan. The film pretty much follows just Tom Hanks throughout this film and sort of how his character develops. At the start, he's assigned to this case to defend this accused KGB spy. And at first he's apprehensive, and I like that he sort of has to weather the storm of all his sort of people in the US as well. Like, they're all like judging him. It's that scene that's really sort of nicely bookended where he's on the subway train and everyone's looking up from their newspapers at him. But I like that his character sort of stays to his guns. Yeah. And no matter what, it always goes back to the Constitution that's in the trailer. It's a total Murica moment.
I have to... No, here's the thing. Here's how I saw the film, and this is probably the cheesy side to the film. Tom Hanks's character is what America thinks it is. what America thinks or wants to be. So he is, I'm going to judge you at first, but then you're going to be going by the law and you have the freedom of the American people. And then all of the other people in the film on the American side who don't want to go with Tom Hanks's plan are what America actually is, which is kill him. Like, burn him, he's a spy, he's going to steal our secrets, and we need to kill him immediately with our guns.
Yeah, because they're now allowing guns in Texas colleges.
Oh god, that's going to go well. That's totally going to go well. Go on, George.
I was going to say, like, that sounded bad from the start, what I said about Tom Hanks. I do like him. It's just he's very specific in the roles that he picks, but he is suited to them. I liked him in it. I mean, when you're looking for a film of a guy to be in this kind of predicament where he's not going to win, but ultimately he will, Tom Hanks is the go-to guy. And to be fair, some of his films with Spielberg are, he's done some great films. Private Ryan, my favourite. And yeah, the newspaper stuff, I'm glad to mention that because it's been a while since I've seen it, but they were easily the best moments of the film. I think there's 3 newspaper scenes, or is it 2? There's one towards the end and there's that one at the beginning. But you're right about the American stuff, that they do think they're all for Mr. Freedom, but actually they're just raving mentalists.
Here's the thing with Tom Hanks as well. He's a fantastic actor. He's just one of the best. He always does a great job, but I always find it difficult in my head to go, this is, just Tom Hanks in another movie. It's like the Tom Cruise effect with me. Like, I never see them playing a character. It's always just the actor. And to be fair, Tom Hanks really doesn't do anything different in this role either. He doesn't wow you in any new sort of acting style that he does, but he's just really good for the movie. And it's, as you said, like, these projects that he picks, he's always well suited to them. So I thought he was really good in this movie. I liked the journey that his character went on, but I will agree with Tate in this respect that the character is sort of written as a very sort of poster boy for America. He's almost like Superman, like the old incarnation, just unwavering, truth, freedom, justice, and the American way. But the big actor they're talking about for this movie is for supporting actor, which is Mark Rylance. Okay, now this guy was phenomenal. He plays the character of Rudolph Abel. He's the accused Russian spy. Every single scene that he's in, I was just glued to the screen. He has some fantastic monologues in this movie, which is in the trailer where he talks about Standing Man. He has a nice sort of running joke throughout the film as well, where Tom Hanks will say something like, "You don't seem afraid or panicking," and he says, "Well, would it help?" He's just fantastic in this film, and he just keeps his cool the whole movie, the entire movie, even up until the end, which we won't go into just yet. But he just was likable all the way through it, and it's up to the viewer, I guess, to decide whether he was a spy or not, because the opening scene of this movie pretty much sums up that he kind of is. But this is where I'm torn. I was saying this before we hit record. Acting wise, I think Mark Rylance is the best for supporting in his category. Although I do want to see Stallone win it for Creed, just because that's my personal bias for Stallone. And
no,
he's fantastic.
I really want to see Rylance win it. He is a Broadway actor. He doesn't usually do films, and for this being, I think it was, or maybe was one of his first films. I'm not sure of his other work. Let me just have a look quickly. He's done TV shows. He's done some films, but not as like a lead actor's character. And something that he did say when he picked up the BAFTA for it, he said, "This is for all the supporting actors out there. We are important." And I haven't seen Creed yet, but I'm pretty sure Stallone's performance would be Sylvester Stallone playing Sylvester Stallone. And it'll be him from every other Rocky film, which people have probably seen before. This was a very unique portrayal. Very quiet. You don't expect... Usually with a spy, I immediately think, oh, okay, so it's James Bond. He's going to be very violent and stuff like that. No. Very secretive, very sneaky, very calm. Always calm. And that is a brilliant and very difficult performance to pull off, which I'm not sure many actors could do.
With Mark Rylance, I mean, it's the first film I've seen him in. It'll be the same for a lot of people. Now, he's now the BFG. He's been cast in Nolan's Dunkirk film, so he's going to make it big time. But what I noticed with this, seeing it for the first time, you're right about the spy stuff, because you think of Bond, Kingsman, anything like that. It's that opening scene where he's in pure silence, and then when they break into his house, he's kind of like puts an accent on, doesn't he? And he does all this crazy stuff, but then you see him like hide the actual spy stuff. So it was a different, almost incarnation, obviously a more realistic incarnation of a spy, and I thought he was great in it. Going to the Stallone stuff in Creed, I think Stallone's hype with Creed is that there is this one scene which he does a monologue, which is probably one of the best acted scenes I've ever seen. Granted, it is Sylvester Stallone. That's what made it more shocking. But it's out of these two, and I'm happy for whoever wins, because I think these two were the best ones I've seen all year that have been nominated. Sorry, Idris Elba wasn't because.
No, I'd say
hashtag
that
Oscars
Mark
so white.
Ruffalo's performance was pretty good.
I haven't seen that yet. Okay, but like from what I've seen, I think Rylance is the favourite. I mean, he's won his BAFTA now. Did he pick up the Screen Actors Guild as well?
Maybe, but Stallone won the Golden Globe.
So it's kind of it's a two-way tie out of these two going into the Oscar, and I'm happy for whoever wins it. But it was this nice introduction. It's something new, and it's an actor that you've kind of got on the template. And the fact he's done the BAFTAs because he's on Broadway at the minute, there'd have been a lot of people that would have pulled out Broadway to have gone to the sort of BAFTA type show.
Yeah, and with just the last point on this, and then we'll move on. But with Stallone as well, he was returning with a legacy character. So I think that was a big draw for a lot of people towards his performance. It was seeing Rocky on screen again the first time in, what was it, like 10 years or something? I think it was, since Rocky Balboa. But I'd be happy to see either of them win, to be honest. But I think acting-wise, Mark Rylance probably did the better job.
Yeah.
What else? Let's talk about direction in this, because you kind of got to talk about Spielberg because he is just a household name in directing. I haven't seen Lincoln, as I said, but visually I think it looked pretty similar in terms of cinematography and lighting and everything like that. And if that's one of my criticisms, it was that I thought the lighting did look a bit overbearing in some scenes. It was very sort of overexposed, and there was some points where it did look a bit fake almost, the actual scene they were in. I don't know if you guys had that. There was a film that came out years and years ago with Jude Law. Was it Sky Captain or something?
Artificial Intelligence AI.
No, it wasn't that. He was
Sky
with
Captain
Gwyneth
in the World
Paltrow.
of Tomorrow.
That's the one, yeah. Sort of visually how that looked in the first Captain America film as well. The lighting and sort of colour palette of the film was done in a really weird way. I think it was to make it look like an older film, like sort of from the time. But to me, it doesn't mesh visually quite as well. Maybe I just had that problem with it, but I don't know if you guys...
I've just seen that Spielberg is going to be a producer on Transformers 5.
It's been, yeah.
He's been a producer on all of them. It is merely a credit. It's merely a credit. He doesn't do anything with it, let's be honest. It's just sticking a name tag on it.
That's not something you want to stick a name tag on.
That's the same with 90%. Oh no, but it's like Nolan was a producer on Man of Steel, but in all honesty, all he said was maybe you guys should do a Superman film sometime. That's all producer credits are. The only relevant.
And then his next film may or may not be Indiana Jones 5, or Real Steel 2, which no one wants, or Gremlins 3. BFG.
Actually, right, I don't know what his next.
BFG.
No, it's Ready Player One, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Ready Player One.
Yeah, see,
Untitled
BFG
Jurassic World sequel. Dear Lord. This man is making mistakes.
Again, it's just his name. I've never really seen the producer as a big deal unless they're on set. And most of the time, it's just a celebrity name to get into the limelight, to stick on a poster. A bit like Peter Jackson on District 9. He helped that get made, but nothing else. But no, with Spielberg, in the direction of this film, it's kind of got all the Spielberg tropes. I mean, people always say that Hitchcock's the master of suspense. I haven't seen enough Hitchcock films, so... I always look at Spielberg. We'll go into it later, but there's the scene on a bridge, which is incredibly tense. That's what I'm going to say in a minute. But it's got all the standard stuff. I don't know if anyone notices in his camera work where whenever there's a character doing a monologue or a conversation, they'd always start in a medium shot, and he will slowly zoom across a few minutes to a close-up. So it's got all the normal sort of Spielberg items. He'll frame a character through a prop in the room or something like that. So it's a kind of, a normal Spielberg film. And I just think he did a solid job. It was a good script.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, as you said, sort of how he frames the conversation scenes in there, because this film is pretty much solely based on conversations between groups of people or just one person with another one. And the one that comes to mind is where I think it's where he meets the Russian guy to discuss the exchange, and I think they're sitting at a chessboard, aren't they? And I think they're playing chess while they discuss. And that scene in general, I mean, it's been done to death in loads of other films, like even in X-Men, where you've got Charles Xavier and Magneto just sitting down discussing things over a game of chess. It's a neat visual mechanic, but I think it works in this, and also Tom Hanks' discussions with Mark Rylance in the interrogation rooms. But I just thought it was just very smart direction. There were some scenes that are shocking and also beautiful at the same time. This one's in the trailer where you've got Tom Hanks on the subway train going past Checkpoint Charlie, and he sees the people trying to scramble out and just getting shot, and it's the look of horror on his face. It scenes like that where the direction really kicks in. Although I guess if you're going to compare this to sort of bigger Spielberg movies that have a lot more going on in terms of action and things like that, maybe people will just see it as another drama movie or a movie that could appear on TV or something like that. But I do think that the hallmarks of Spielberg's direction are all throughout this movie as well.
Oh, certainly. And I haven't seen Lincoln. I am aiming to try and get all the Spielberg ones done eventually. I think I'm on 16 out of 30 now. But it's one of them films where he's done some poor ones like Indiana Jones, but this is another one, and there's so many where they're just very good films because he's just naturally an amazing director. That's why a lot of people do call him the greatest of all time. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, he has worked
Maybe
with Tom Hanks before as well, so you know that they're going to have that rapport. They both know what they need to bring to the direction and the role, and they've worked well with each other before, so I think that helped as well. I guess we can talk about the music as well. Sort of in the last couple of Oscar movies that we've talked about, we haven't really talked about musical that much because to me there hasn't been really anything stand out, but I thought the music to this was fantastic, and it got towards the end, which I'm not going to give away, but I almost did get Shawshank Redemption vibes from the ending of this movie, just sort of how everything culminates and the final scene with the music playing over it. I thought the music, Thomas Newman's score, really just complemented the film just so well all the way throughout this film.
Yeah.
I mean, it got tense when it needed to get tense. We're going to talk about the bridge scene later on, but that to me was where the music really kicked in as well.
And soundtrack-wise, this is the first one, and I think since the 70s that John Williams hasn't done the soundtrack to a Spielberg film. So the fact that Thomas Newman's able to come in and he does something that is still fantastic is incredible, because I bet for Spielberg, finding the new composer is probably one of the
I'm
hardest
guessing it
things
was
he's done
because
in a
Williams
long
was
time.
tied up with Force Awakens, right?
It wasn't that. He was ill at the beginning of last year when he was meant to be doing the sort of soundtrack stuff, so he had to pass on. I think a lot of it was also doing Star Wars, but he's been ill over the past year with Star Wars. He didn't use the London Orchestra that he normally did. He used like a sort of local one in America. But I've heard that he's better now, which is a good thing.
Awesome.
Tate, do you want to get in on the soundtrack?
The soundtrack didn't really. It just didn't hit with me at all. I'm not gonna lie.
Fair enough.
Even in the intense scenes, I was more focused on what was actually happening on the screen than actually listening out for the soundtrack.
Yeah, I think it's one of them where I didn't notice the soundtrack when I watched the film because the on-screen events are kind of in the way more. But it'd be one of them if you saw it in silence, you'd notice it a bit more. But having listened to it again, but it just felt very John Williams-y in a good way the first time I saw it.
So now I guess we can just get onto positives and negatives and just sum up with our recommendation, and then we'll move into spoilers. So who wants to go first with positives, negatives?
I might as well. I don't have a negative as such. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't really remember what's playing on my mind. But as positives, it's Spielberg does another good film. There's a great script with great performances, with good direction, and I think it's not flawless. There's very many films are, but it's a solid film, and I can understand why it's got so many nominations.
I would say that it was possibly the second best screenplay of the year. The writing was amazing, it was intense, and it made you feel like you were there. That was one of the positives from it. I'd say probably the best one was Steve Jobs, by the way.
Yeah, same.
But I'd say negatives were maybe it dragged on a little too long. I feel like like the scenes where he went to Germany just seemed to last forever with no tension. It only got intense when he was on the train. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'll kind of agree with that. It does sit at pretty much bang on. Oh, it's 2 hours 20, isn't it? So yeah, maybe a little too long. I think they could have probably done it in 2 hours 10 or 2 hours bang on the dot. I just thought it was a fantastic drama piece. It'll definitely be one of those films that I'll go back and watch a second time. Which for a lot of the Oscar movies we've said that are sort of a one and done, but I think this one does have a bit more staying power than the other ones. Brilliantly written script, fantastic performances from Tom Hanks, Mark Rylance. Well, everyone's good in this movie, but they're the two standout ones. If I'm going to give any negatives, it's sort of what we discussed earlier a little bit, where it might be a bit too on the nose that America's great and true and just. The scenes where I think it's where the pilot gets kidnapped, Francis Gary Powers, and he's been subjected to massive amounts of torture from the Soviets. In exchange for information, and he doesn't know anything.
Our guy really, really nicely.
Yeah, and then
our guy from our point of view, the American guy.
Yeah, it immediately cuts to the Americans and their treatment of Mark Rylance's character, and he's getting food, he's being treated well, he's not being beaten on or tortured or anything like that. So it was scenes like that where I thought it may have been a bit too blatant.
Yeah.
But that's me really reaching for a negative here, because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and when it gets to the ending, I did get, as I said, Shawshank Redemption vibes, which is massive praise for me, because that's one of my favourite films of all time.
Where do they want this negotiation?
East Berlin.
People in my country consider this an act of war.
The next mistake our governments make could be the last one.
So now we'll get on to spoilers. We haven't got loads to talk about. It's just a few of the key sort of story moments that, if you're going into this blindly, we do not want to give away. So are we starting with the massacre on the wall? We touched on it a little bit, but
might as well.
Yeah,
it was in the trailer. I know that.
Yeah, I remember.
But it was probably the most shocking scene in the film.
With
really put things into perspective.
I don't know what your guys' knowledge of the Cold War is. I'm not bragging on all this shit, but the Berlin Wall was one of the biggest things that obviously the Allies they occupied Germany as well as Berlin. They split it up into sections, and basically the USSR built the wall over there, splitting up families, work, blah, malarkey. So seeing that was interesting because it's kind of throwback to GCSEs, but also forgetting the treatment, because everyone sport-wise, East Germany is successful. These aren't just kind of like, okay, they're treating them worse. They genuinely did. And seeing it for the first time, they're shooting up these people. This did happen back then when they did do these splits. And it was just like almost shocking, because the way the film's kind of gone, you see in the way the Americans treated it, Chris, it goes into a negative that, the Americans are treating it so nice, but it's the brutality of these are just people that want to live on the sort of free side, the communist free side. And it did happen. And it was just shocking just seeing them like massacred or snipers, stuff like that. You just forget it kind of ups the sort of stakes that Tom Hanks has got to deal with, especially when he kind of almost gets screwed over, and they kind of like have the police come to him, I think. I remember it. But it was a really wild scene. I think it was all a long tracking shot as well, wasn't it, of the train going past?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. And when you were talking about the wall just there, one of the bits I thought was just brilliant how they did it, and probably this was Spielberg's idea, and it sort of showed the whole futility of it and how stupid the whole concept was, is where the camera's tracking and it comes up with a little caption at the bottom saying, was it East Germany? And then like a matter of seconds later it just passes over the wall and says West Germany.
Yeah.
Or something like. I thought that was fantastic how they did that. And then that sort of goes into that whole subplot with the student. I think it was economics student, was it, or something like that. And then that's another hurdle that Tom Hanks' character has to get over, where he ultimately has to secure the release or exchange of 3 people.
And it worked. He was able to do it. And
Tom Hanks saves the day.
Can we talk about the bridge scene?
Yes.
The bridge of Spies.
Yeah. Oh, this scene was. Oh, I was literally on the edge of my seat because I knew nothing about the history of this, you see. I didn't know any of these characters, so I was just glued to this scene, and how tension was built throughout all this scene. It was just incredible.
The fact that he had to wait, and then finally you get the call, and then you don't know whether things are going to work out well, whether it's going to turn violent or anything like that.
Yeah, and before this as well, where Mark Rylance says, I think Tom Hanks asks him, like, how will I know you're safe? And it says, well, that all depends if they greet me with open arms or if they take me into the back of a car.
And they don't greet him with open arms.
No, and my heart just sank in that moment. Because you really like Mark Rylance's character all the way through this movie, and when that happened, I was like, oh god, this is all gone to shit.
And I think, I was going to say, it's the silence. I mean, we spoke about the soundtrack earlier. I remember this scene. There was nothing. It was just almost Tom Hanks just waiting with Mark Rylance for ages. I think the car was flashing its lights, and he was just holding still. And I thought, okay, are they going to like gun them down or something like that? And then it's like, okay, they haven't sent a second car to the second location.
Yeah.
And it was just so tense watching it, and you almost on the edge of your seat.
And it's the fact that even at that point, the rest of the US are saying, like, who cares that you haven't got both people? We're here just for this exchange, here to get the soldier back. And, you know, Tom Hanks stick to his guns, and even Mark Rylance as well. He says, like, no, I'm happy to wait. I want to make sure that everyone, you know, the agreement's met.
Yeah.
That scene was without a doubt probably one of the tensest scenes of the year for me in film. I absolutely just loved it. So then we sort of get to the end where we get the caption where, you know, Tom Hanks returns home, and then it bookends the film nicely.
He's a hero.
On the subway. Yeah, and does he drive? I'm trying to think what he drives past on the subway at the end where he looks out. Is it just sort of
it's the newspaper
kids
articles.
running over a wall and newspaper?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like kids running over the wall and stuff, which bookends the one where he saw people getting gunned down. I thought that was nice, and then we get the captions at the end where I'm trying to remember now. I think Tom Hanks was assigned to.
Tom Hanks was a decorated hero.
As usual.
I think he was like assigned by the government to another case, wasn't it? I don't know if it was
Chris, is Tom Hanks more of a Mary Sue or less of Mary Sue than Ray from Star Wars?
Less of a Mary Sue.
What?
Because he showed times of vulnerability.
But he's been a Mary Sue in everything.
This is true, but he was just slightly less of one than Ray was in Star Wars.
Trust me, Ray will lose a hand in episode 8. Counting on it. Has Tom Hanks ever lost a hand? No, he got A's in Philadelphia. But
hey, he lost an arm in Toy Story.
They sewed it back on and he got clean again.
So did Luke.
That's true.
Oh man.
I like Tom Hanks. It's just, you know, Saving Private Ryan, the hero's sacrifice. The way he just, you know, although in a tank there's maybe 5 people, he just shoots one person and that tank comes to a standstill. And it's his last thing, his hero's ending. Because Tom Hanks, the one film he dies in, he still saves the day.
What is Tom Hanks' next movie? I'm going to check right now.
Probably Toy Story 4.
Oh, he's got the new Da Vinci Code movie as well, hasn't he?
Yes, he does.
Oh, another set of films he saved the day in twice.
Hey, he discovered the location of Mary Magdalene, okay? That was a glorious moment.
And it was in the Louvre all this time.
All the time.
Spoilers, by the way.
Oh yeah, we just completely ruined that movie now. It's been out for ages.
And,
yeah, it's fine.
And Obi-Wan is the villain in the second film. I just
Yes.
remember that twist. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I like Tom Hanks. It's just, you know, try something different, friend. I know you're getting a bit older. Like Captain Phillips, you know. He's a great guy, though. I fucking love Tom Hanks.
He's in a couple of miniseries. That's all producing. I need to look at actor.
I'm waiting for the third Band of Brothers Pacific film, which have been him and Spielberg have been talking about for years. I know this is really going off topic, but I'm waiting for that third TV show. But yeah.
I don't know. I still like Tom Hanks. I think it's just because he's so just likable in general that I just sort of like everything he's in. Are we all done talking Bridge of Spies? Can you guys think of anything else you'd like to bring up, or is that pretty much
I'd
it?
recommend it.
Yeah,
totally. I know. I would recommend this film. It's one of the sort of it's an easy film to watch in the sense that it's not ramming it down your throat. That there's some bigger picture to everything that's happening. It is a good film. It is an intense film, and it's a really well made film. And I think Chris is right. This is a film I'll be able to watch again sometime. And I think it's not going to pick up a cult following, but I think a lot of people that see this film will appreciate it and they will remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree with that as well. I loved seeing the politics of it all, especially where he goes to that. Is it the German guy he goes up to, and he basically calls his bluff and says, like, if you don't do this, if you don't meet these demands, then the Russians are gonna come back and expose you all, or something like that. Just seeing scenes like that play out, you can't beat just great dialogue scenes like that, tense dialogue scenes, and that's what this whole film is filled with. One of the tensest scenes you'll ever see at the very end on the bridge, and it's just masterfully directed by Spielberg, perfectly well written, and the performances are great. So I would highly recommend this one. I think probably, in my mind, it's one of the best Oscar films we got this year.
Standing there like that, you remind me of a man when I was young. Our house was overrun by border guards. And this man, my father's friend, he was beaten. Every time they hit him, he stood back up again. They hit him harder. Still, he got back to his feet. I think because of this, they let him live.
And I remind you of him?
Standing man. Standing man.
So that'll do it for our review on Bridge of Spies. Be sure to comment and subscribe. Let us know what you thought of Bridge of Spies, or just Steven Spielberg films in general. We've got a few more Oscar films to get through, and then we'll be getting to our live stream on the 28th/29th of this month. We should have times and everything like that up soon. That'll be on our Facebook and Twitter pages. We'll have a poster up there at some point. Links to those are in the description below. So yeah, that'll do it. I know that we've got to talk Spotlight and Trumbo. I think they're the last two we really need to discuss. They're the major players in the Oscars, so we'll get those reviews out to you at some point. So until the next video, thanks for listening.